Hey everyone, my guest today is Coral Peña. Coral stars as Aleida Rosales in the Apple TV Plus series For All Mankind. She starred in the play Our Dear Dead Drug Lords in LA and BLKS at MCC on the New York stage. She can also be seen in the upcoming films Thelma and Story Avenue. Previously, or Story Ave, she'll correct me after I finish reading this. Previously, she appeared alongside Meryl Streep in Spielberg's The Post and in the American film. Sorry, previously she appeared alongside Meryl Streep in Steven Spielberg's The Post and in the Amazon film Chemical Hearts. I love that I called it an American film, but it probably was. Other TV appearances include The Enemy Within and 24 Legacy. She was born in the Dominican Republic, mostly raised in New York, as far as I know. She studied at NYU Tisch School of the Arts and the Royal Academy for Dramatic Arts. I cannot wait to get into this conversation. Welcome, Coral, to the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited to have you. It is so thrilling. I get to deep dive into as much as I can about my guests before I get to sit down with them. And I love how you live your life, Coral. That is what I
Oh,
want to say. And I wonder, before we get into For All Mankind, which is such an interesting show and such a deep dive into the space history of America and Russia. And I love the time travel and the sort of what would happen if version
yeah.
of
Yeah.
history. But before we get to you starring now in its fourth season on a TV show, which is the dream to be on something long enough to actually feel like you know what you're doing. Can we go back a little bit? I love sharing people's origin stories on the show. Um, Yours is particularly inspiring. So I wonder if you don't mind, before we get into your beautiful career and kind of what led you to decide I want to be an artist as a grown-up person, a little bit of your history and your story, and your family story.
Sure. Well, yes, so I was born in the Dominican Republic, but I was there for 6 months. So I was 6 months shy of being an American citizen. I actually didn't become a citizen until 2014. Um, but I grew up with my mother and three sisters, so a house of five women. I grew up in the projects, and my mom made it is crazy that the older I get, the more I understand, I guess, just money, the more I realized how I grew up, which is with no, like truly no money. My mom made as a housekeeper $30,000 a year and used that 30K a year to support four daughters. Um, we all ended up my sister went to UPenn, she went to an Ivy League school, and we went to boarding school. I mean, we ended up having a very in some ways privileged life, despite the fact that there was nothing guiding us in that direction. And i I used to say, like, oh, I was really lucky. And I had my friends who, when you're in boarding school, you gravitate towards the other people of color. And so I'm still friends with them to this day. We have a group chat. And I remember saying lucky, and they started getting mad at me. They were like, stop saying that you're lucky. Stop saying that you're lucky. You did so much. Stop saying that you're lucky. But I do think it was a little bit of luck, because it's like, I grew up with so many people who could not escape poverty, could not escape Harlem, could not escape the hood, could not escape um, really dark lives, and I did. And I think that is, there's hard work, but there's luck there. And because anything could have turned me in a different direction when you're in that place. And um so yeah, I liked art my whole life, and somehow I knew it was a career. It clicked one day. Oh, this is a job, and you go to school for it. So I applied to NYU. I got in on full scholarship. The state of New York paid for me to go to NYU, and I had I had a great time there, and I studied at RADA. I did Shakespeare training. Uh, when I was 19, I left the country for the first time, did Shakespeare training. Insane, amazing, changed my life, made me the artist that I am. And then now I'm here talking to you on this show.
And that's it. That's it. Here we
That's it.
are.
There you
Now
go.
we're in January 2024. That was quick. It's like your TV show, like at the beginning, the credits where they just zoom through.
Yeah.
It's like a
That's
flip book.
the
Yeah.
exactly.
I just want to just like stay in this moment for a second, because it really is sort of this idea of luck versus no, like a really sort of pointed focus on
Yeah,
how to figure out how to live within a system, and take your limitations and use them to your advantage in a certain way.
right.
Or maybe more to the point, to really feel like aware, when your friend was like, stop saying it's lucky, but you did, like you felt lucky and you felt like there were
Yeah,
limitations to what was expected of your
right.
family's experience. So I just want to go back to your incredible mother for a minute, because raising children in with limited funds on your own, navigating New York City is it's a beast. And
Yeah.
so, like, who was her support system? Where was the support system? Did you guys have other family? Did your neighbors become your friends, and were there teachers along the way? Like, how do you, coming from another country, even
Yeah.
if English is your first language,
Yeah.
because you come, like, it's all new, and to be young, alone, and figuring it out. Can you just talk a little bit more about this heroic woman, who has raised all of these heroic girls?
Yeah, I mean, when my grandfather passed away, probably towards the end of when I was in college, his funeral was so big, and I got to hear a lot of stories of when I was young or even before, and started. It allowed me to put pieces together. But my grandfather's youngest brother, he was one of, I think, 12, 11, 12. His youngest brother, somehow, I don't really remember, but somehow he got a visa from Dominican Republic, and that was in the 80s. And from that moment on, it was like go 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 go, and everyone's like passing the baton behind them, you know. And so my mom at that point, my grandparents were already there, a bunch of cousins and some of her siblings, and so she had a support system um in some way. I don't know how much of a support system you could have and it be normal. Like, I'm sure it was. I mean, my mom's from Santo Domingo in Dominican Republic, which is a rambunctious city. She grew up quite poor. When I visited years ago, my mom's never talked about it, and not because she's withheld it. I just don't think she's thought much of it. But when we visited, the homes are just these cinder blocks and the doors are curtains, and that's it. That's your house. And so I think for my mom, in some way, because I've been thinking about it a lot recently, um, even though she made 30K and she didn't have a lot of money, guess what she did have? She had running water, and she had heating, and she had an elevator that, just an elevator, not even an elevator to work, an elevator. And so I think there was some of it. It's been. I'm fortunate in this way, because I think no matter how much I succeed or how much money I make, my mom, the idea of just living any of this is pretty magical, and new, and special. And so yeah, we had support system. But also, when you grow up, I grew up in the projects. My sister told me a story recently. I remember having a bunch of books growing up. I mean, my house was filled with books. My sister is a really intense reader. And she told me only recently that the reason why we had so many books is because we had a next door neighbor who was moving out, and she could hear that my mom had a bunch of girls. And she came over with two garbage bags and said, "Hi, my daughters are grown up now. They don't need these books. Do you want them? And so I think in that those circumstances in the projects, when you grow up poor and there's other poor people around you, there's actually your neighbors are also trying to help you with what little they have. And so that's why I love New York. I think everyone takes care of each other, and in a really special way that I think if you're not from New York, you don't understand the level of community, what community is in New York. So my mom's special, but there was also a lot of special people around us. Yeah.
Yeah. And you said you went to boarding school. So how old were
Yeah.
you from when to when?
14 to 18. So my high school years.
Okay. And where was that?
It was in near Princeton, New Jersey, a town called Hightstown. It was Petty school. Uh, it was great. I mean, I think I wanted to go because we had such, it's so funny. I guess in my brain, I'm like, this is a very mature thought process for a 13, 14-year-old. But we had such a small apartment and I felt like I couldn't concentrate on my homework. And so my sister had already gone, and I thought, this would be good. I have my own space, and I can ask my teachers for help on my homework and all these things. And yeah, I liked it a lot. Everyone has different experiences with boarding school, and some people really don't like it, and some people do. And I'm one of the people who did. Yeah.
Can I ask, and then we'll get past the age of
Yeah.
13, I promise. But like, how did you know about this boarding school? Like, how did that even come into your consciousness as like a thing? Did you have friends who went there? Was there like a teacher at your current school at the time? Like, literally,
Yeah.
how did you even know about it?
It was my sister. So I have two older sisters. The oldest didn't go to boarding school, but the one right above me, her name is Taina. I feel like I've at this point really elevated the story. If she probably heard me tell it, she'd be like, it didn't really go like this. But she was so wicked smart in public school, PS 46, in public school in New York, that the state of New York was like, hey, you're really smart. We're going to put you in a private school. So then she went to a private school, and then she did well in private school in New York. And maybe it was a charter school or something. And from there, her headmaster was like, you should go to boarding school. And she went to boarding school. And then she was so smart in boarding school. And then she went to UPenn. And so she really opened the door education wise, because I was never a great student, but I was a good community member. I was in student council and things like that. And so she opened that door, and I didn't even know it was a thing, especially a thing that was like a prestigious thing. It's funny when I sometimes tell people I went to boarding school, they're like, what did you do wrong? I was like, I didn't do anything. It was a reward. I did a good job.
It wasn't like a wilderness camp, guys.
Right. No, I was not misbehaving. I was actually behaving so well. I went to boarding school.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially in America, there's so many different versions of what it
Yeah.
means. But be that as it may, at some point along the way, you connected to performing. I don't know if it was when you were in boarding school. I don't know if you were a kid dancing around your living room and making everyone pay attention to whatever you had to say. But when did you sort of become aware that this was something you really wanted to do in earnest and study in earnest?
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm shy about it, and I'm shy to even say it right now, but I sing. I don't think of myself as a singer, but I sing. And my family was very impressed by that. I had a very deep voice when I was a kid, really deep husky voice, and uh I would sing like Tony Braxton, and they'd be like, whoa, look at this like 9-year-old singing Tony Braxton. And that always, I think, perked my ears up to doing things that involved music. And so slowly my performance nature was sort of uncovered through that. And when I was at boarding school, I don't know why I did it. I think it scared me, but I did sports, even though I have not grown since I was in fourth grade. I don't know why I thought I could play basketball.
Wait,
I
is
don't know
that
what was going on.
literally true? Are you being
A
literal?
100. Yes, it's funny because every once in a while someone will be watching something I'm in,
Yeah.
and they'll put me next to someone who is 6'3", and the audience, I think, realizes like this is a very small person.
She's a
So
teeny tiny. How tall are you?
I'm 5'1".
Okay.
And so I did sports. I was avoiding doing the arts at boarding school because I knew once I did it, that was it. But then I was encouraged to audition for the musical, and I got in, and that was sort of it. Then I started in my free time reading, looking up scripts for TV and movies and reading them and writing my own scripts and looking up monologues and performing them and practicing, accents, and all that kind of started rumbling in me. Like it just poured out once I did the musical. And I spoke to a teacher, and she said, this is a career and you can go to school for it. I said, no way. And so I applied to NYU, and then here we are.
So what was your first professional work experience?
My first professional work experience it's funny because I think it was my first major movie. The Post was my first major movie with Stephen and Meryl, which is so funny. I remember on that set, Zach Woods. I was wearing an NYU sweatshirt, and Zach Woods I said, I went to NYU. And he said, what year did you graduate? And I told him, and he said, were you a child actor? And I was like, no, this is my first thing. And he was like, what is wrong with you? I was like, I
I
don't know,
know
someone else hired me.
it's gonna be really upsetting for people listening that like, well, my first job was made. Have you heard of Steven Spielberg? Well,
But what's
did you have
funny is
an
that
agent?
technically I did. Well, so that technically wasn't my first job. It was my first big job, but my first job was this movie called Pirates of Somalia. At that point, I had a manager and an agent. I got one straight out of NYU, which was amazing. And I, it's funny because the director of that movie, Brian Buckley, and his wife Kiana became instantly two of my greatest friends. I went to their wedding. I recently was just at their house. And it was my scenes. It's funny because I'm like, oh my, Steven Spielberg and Meryl Streep. My scenes were solely with Al Pacino. So my first acting job actually was with Al Pacino.
Can you
And
talk about that? Like
that was
we're not going to
amazing.
run through this. So did you do like an evening of scenes that agents and managers came to see as a graduate? Like when you say, or were you doing things at NYU that people came to
No,
see? So how did you
yeah.
literally get an agent and a manager so young without being a child actor?
It was a trickle, things sort of trickled in. So I in a showcase, so at NYU there's a studio called Stone Street for film and TV, and part of Stone Street is that they have showcases with agents and managers. And so I auditioned, and I got a commercial agent from that. And I told myself, okay, if I do really great here, then I'm going to reach out to people. And I did. I got really lucky. I got a bunch of commercials really quickly, and I used that to get a manager. And through that manager, I got an agent. And it's funny, the agents were sort of unsure about me because I think we're still at the time where I think if you were a non-white person, you had to play the role of a non-white person, i.e., I came in and I just had like a nice outfit on, and they wanted me to come in with like ripped jeans and be edgy and like speak Spanish and like all this stuff. And I was like, oh, I'm classically trained. Like I can do that, but that's not like what I eat and breathe all the time. And so I just, I barely got an agent. And then I immediately got Pirates of Somalia, and they were like, oh, okay. And then I think I was with them for 3 months, and I got my first series regular job pilot season. So it was out of the gate, something was in the water, in my water, in someone else's water. I don't know, but I kept getting callbacks and cast in things, and it really set me on a quick forward trajectory.
So you have not had to have a day job or a waitressing job or a bartending job since you started your career?
Yeah, I stopped. So I worked at a restaurant, and the restaurant's name is Barbudo. Great restaurant. Everyone there was amazing. Uh, I I felt like when you're just graduating school and you're entering an unstable career, the goal can sometimes, even if you don't realize it, can be stability. And I was looking around and I was seeing people who were sort of stuck, and they started to prioritize the job over the job they actually wanted to do, and slowly they started taking on more shifts and turning down more auditions. And I was like, okay, I can't do that. So I told myself I'm gonna stick to a part-time job for 6 months, and then I'm gonna move on to the next part-time job, and it's gonna keep me on my toes. And I
Right.
can't. And so I was at Barbudo for 6 months, and then I worked at Soul Cycle for 2.5 months. Um, and I remember Soul Cycle wasn't bad. People were nice. It just, it wasn't great also at the same time. And I remember I got 24 Legacy, which was my first year's regular job. Um, I got it. I had a shift the next morning at 5 a.m. And I just emailed them, I'm not coming in, I quit. And they said, oh my God, what happened? And I just sent them, it was kind of, it, I wasn't trying to be an asshole, but I sent them the deadline article. And I was like, I'm not coming in. And they said, hey, that's so great. Could you still get someone to cover your shift? And I just was like, no, I'm out. I'm out of the game.
I think that's going to be on you. That's going to be on
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
So were those, or okay, I'm still like, having just watched a little bit of Godfather Part 2 last night, just
Yeah.
imagining, obviously generationally, I don't know that, well, I don't want to speak for you. Al
Yeah.
Pacino, Meryl Streep, there are certain actors that for actors coming up of a certain generation, the
Yeah.
idea that their early work would be on set with those people, that
Yeah.
may or may not have been true for you. And maybe because they weren't
No.
like, or it
I
was,
mean,
you
they
were
were at the
highly
point where
aware.
they were actually in legend territory where I
Yeah,
didn't even fantasize about ever working with them because I thought that
right,
is physically impossible.
right,
And so when both happened, I actually I wasn't nervous because I don't think I could process that, like, oh, that's Al Pacino, that's Meryl Streep, that's
right.
Steven Spielberg, that's Tom Hanks. Like that wasn't what my brain was doing. Um, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, I knew I was in front of
Okay.
Al
Okay.
Pacino. Yeah,
Because
yeah.
sometimes you meet younger people and they're like, I've heard of them. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There are other people that they'd be like, well, Ryan Gosling, yeah, or whatever.
I
So
mean, Dog Day Afternoon and Serpico are two of the most influential movies for me as an actor. So I knew.
and as somebody growing up in New York, like those are films where you see your city
Yeah,
at a different time in
yeah,
history, like
yeah,
decades earlier, and can kind of go, wow, in these ways it's still exactly the same. And in other
yeah.
ways, they've sort of Disneyfied Times Square, right?
Sure, sure.
Okay, so in terms of, I do want to ask you, were there any takeaways? And then we're going to get into Aleida. Um, are there things in your early days watching Al Pacino, watching Meryl Streep, whether you had, one scene or more, just sort of
Yeah.
observing, are there any takeaways that you thought, I'm going to remember this forever and take this with me? Do you have anything you can share with either of those icons as you describe them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I remember on the post doing a take and Steven getting up from his chair and doing a jig and then like coming towards me and going like, that was great. Did you feel that was great? That was great. And he was filled with so much energy, and same with Marilyn, same with Al, where they, no matter where they are, what movie they're doing, how much the movie it is being, how much funding the movie has, they love acting so much. And I remember watching Al, and he was just improvising and improvising. And at a certain point, I mean, this he was making the scene 5 minutes longer than it was on the page. And eventually, he goes, "You guys have to stop me eventually because I'll keep going." And thinking, yeah, he loves it so much. You have to physically pull him away from the scene. And so for me, I feel like there's so much noise as an actor, especially now, about what you're supposed to be doing and what you're supposed to care about, and where your priorities should be. But these people have the career they have because their priorities have always been the art, and they just love it. They
And
didn't
it
Nick
sounds
Cage say it during
infectious.
yeah, and
Yeah,
didn't Nick Cage say it during his Oscar speech where he says, "I know this isn't Hitman, but I just love acting." And it's like, yeah, that's it.
yeah,
That's the
that's it.
magic. That's it. There's no other a secret to it. It's just, do you love it? And if you love it, just do it. And don't think about the other things, and don't think about what people are going to say. Do it. You're here now, and that's my takeaway. That's what I tried to hold on to, which is that I'm doing it because I love it. And no matter what highs or lows happen, uh I get to do the thing I love, and that's pretty special.
So you're obviously aware, as Coral Pena, that there are so many young people who are seeing someone on television who reminds them of themselves. Not that they
Mm.
necessarily work for NASA, but you look like them. If they read up on you, your story in some way resonates with them.
Hmm.
Um, when you were growing up, was there anyone on screen or your small television or stage? As New York kids, you often, even if we're way up in the balcony, like fourth mezzanine, there are programs
Yeah.
where we get to see Broadway shows. So
Yeah.
who was that for you, or was there more than one?
Yeah. And the person for me then, and they still are that person, uh, is, was and is Regina King. I remember feeling, and this was before I think people really started to understand that was extremely underutilized. But she has such a heart, and yeah, I felt really warm anytime I watched anything she did. Um, and she did several things. She did two characters on the lead characters on the Boondocks. So she's doing voiceover work. She's doing film. She's doing TV. She's doing everything. So yeah, Regina King. And then also Jodie Foster. I felt very connected to Jodie Foster. The first serious film I ever watched was Silence of the Lambs, and I remember feeling like, oh yeah, Jodie Foster. That's she's it. She's it.
So you intuited like that is someone who understands their craft deeply.
Yeah, yeah. And that's someone, I think one of the things that I feel pulled towards Regina and Jodie is that they both also seem like people who um just keep their head down and do the work. And that's an infectious thing to also watch on a screen, because you feel like they're here. Their head's not somewhere else, they're right here.
Mhm.
They're not judging the work. They don't think they're ever above work. um yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'm curious, I don't, were you on one season of 24 or more?
It was a one season show.
Right.
Yeah, it was the
In
best sort
real
of first
time.
show. Yeah, it was the best show to be on because I didn't do much, but I got to watch and observe, so the stakes were pretty low. But I got to quit my survival job, so that was nice. And then, I can say this now, it wasn't a very good show. So one season was enough. We did it. We all bonded, we had a good time, and then the show was done, and it was great.
So now, I think about this idea we talked about it earlier. I talked about it earlier, where you're not just a guest on Blue Bloods or somebody else's show where you're coming in and
Yeah.
coming out. And by the way, all the heavy lifting often falls on the guest star on those
Oh yeah.
shows, right? You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
and you don't know anyone and you just
Yeah.
hope that you can remember your lines. Now you are in an ensemble, right? It's as close to theater as
Mm,
it can get. Not that you get to
yeah.
do the show in order, the way a play is rehearsed and performed in order. Um, but you are part of an ensemble. I mean, I know, I think you came in, one or two seasons into the show, but I do wonder, um, now that you like are really on it, do you feel like the writers can now write to you? Do you feel like, oh,
Yeah.
they really know me as a human now, not just in this role, because this scene or that scene really feels organic to me?
Yeah, when I came on for the second season, I felt like I was making decisions based off of what someone else thought the character was. And that was fine. I felt like I was making really great character choices. And I look back and it's controversial. My character wasn't really liked in the second season, but I loved it. I was like, oh, she's someone that people don't like. That's fun. So I was really proud of my character choices, but I didn't feel like it was my moment to moment choices all the time, even in the edit and things like that. And in the third season, I was really um, feeling like, because joining the show in the second season, you feel like you're new. It took me until this season, fourth season, to feel like I'm finally actually on the show instead of or I this is my show rather than I'm on the show. Um, the third season, there was a lot of push and pull of feeling like, when can I speak up and when can I fight and what battles should I be choosing? In the fourth season, I was just like, no, 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 this is right. I promise you, you're going to like it. Let me do it. You'll see it and then you're going to like it. And it's to me no surprise that in the fourth season, I think I'm getting the most love critically, viewers, because I think you're getting to see that like I think an actor's always their best when they feel confident and when they feel secure. And I felt that, and I think you see that, which is just someone who is like, I know this person, and I know I have something to give here, and I'm gonna let the work speak for itself. And so yeah, the writing, they wrote me some really exceptional stuff. I had like a 5-page monologue in episode 6 this season, and I when I saw that, I was like, wow, they really trust me. That's great. Okay. All right, here's my chance to prove that they can continue to trust me. And then I did it, and then they wrote more and they wrote more. And so yeah, it feels like we all are really the trust. Yeah, we all trust each other. Um I feel like I'm part of the conversation rather than the conversation's happening and then I hear about it after.
Right. When you mention sort of the word critic or critical, um,
Hmm.
I mean, you've done a lot of theater also. It's been a while. I hope we get you back soon on the boards. How do you handle, you know, we live we live in a very loud society in terms of not just people who are paid to be critics and write
Yeah.
for, papers and places we all know, but everyone has an opinion, and the internet is a place where everyone can share it. How do you handle, what is your relationship to that reality of being an artist in this time in something commercial? How do you protect yourself? What is your way of navigating all of those voices and all of those opinions, as it were?
Yeah, I mean, to my own detriment. I'm too curious about what people are saying. I love notes and I love critique from my peers, whether it be critics that I do believe, really have their finger on the pulse and really understand art and love it and want it to thrive. If I get a bad review from someone like that, it hurts and it haunts me, but I like it because you should be encouraging perspectives from your peers. It is hard when I see um, negative critique from people who aren't artists, because I think artists should be free to make bold choices, and whether they land or not is actually not what we should be um, excited to see. It's the fact that someone decided to go for it. Speaking of Nicolas Cage, like I I think it's cool. He makes some big swings, and they're all like if you hear him talk, he's making like vaudevillian choices, and he's talking about kabuki, and he's making it from real places, and they don't always land, but it's cool that he made them. I mean, I think that's exciting. But a lot of people watch movies or TV, and it's just like, if I like it, then it's good. If I dislike it, then it's bad. And there's no conversation about, I didn't like it. It wasn't my type of choice, but it was interesting that they made it. I wonder why they made it. There's not that further conversation. And I think that's when the critique is hard because I'm like, I know you didn't like the choice that this actor made, but it was cool, or that the director made. And yeah, I think I'm starting to learn how to differentiate critique from people that I should be absorbing what they have to say versus people that I will, okay, that is your opinion, but I don't have to share that opinion with you. And it takes, I'm still working on it, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's our life's work, right? To
Yeah.
just, so two things I want to say to you. One is it just so happens a couple of weeks ago, I had an episode drop with an author of a book called From Coppola to Cage, and
Mm,
it is all about Nick Cage and his family
right.
and his process. I think you might love it. It's not a book I would have
Yeah.
ordinarily read, but because I was
Yeah.
interviewing the author, but it really happens to be like fantastic. And I think
Yeah.
just use it, you've mentioned him a couple of times because he is so himself. That's the one thing
Yeah.
you can say
Yeah.
about Nicolas Cage. And he comes from this unbelievably artistic family, and
Yeah.
how you run away from the thing that you end up running directly towards.
Yeah.
It's just a really, I actually enjoyed the read a lot. And then I just had this woman on the show named Barbara Barry, who was in the original production of Company, the Sondheim musical
Oh,
on
wow.
Broadway. And she studied with Uta Hagen, one of the, first
Of course.
women acting teachers in the world.
Yeah.
And she said this thing that really resonated with me, which, we were just talking about process, and she's in her 90s and still uses Uta Hagen's
Mm,
lessons, every time she walks on a set and on stage. And the thing we're talking about nerves and nervousness, and especially in theater where you don't get another take, and you
yeah.
can't redo you get to do it again tomorrow, hopefully, but
Yeah.
sometimes last night's performance really haunts us.
Yeah.
Or when critics are coming, and even if you're someone who doesn't read reviews or want to know when they're there, you can tell they're there. Everyone's acting
Yeah.
strangely, and suddenly the producers are hot. You're like, why is everyone here tonight? And you're like, oh my God, the New York
Mm,
Times is here, and you want to die. But she was like, the moment I realized my only job is to tell the story, that's it.
hmm.
That's my work. My nerves go away. She's like, I
Yeah.
know also I've done the work. I'm like, I can tell you where my character is coming from when she gets on stage and where she's going when she leaves stage. I mean, all the things we know. But I
Mm,
really, really thought this idea of, and it's not easy.
mm,
But if you really live and die by, I am just here as a messenger for this
yeah.
story, then our egos sort of can disappear. And whether, you know, chat room A person or chat room B person have great or terrible things to say, you can just go like, I'm just telling the story, right? Like
Yeah.
that's all
Yeah.
I'm here to do. And I feel like
Um,
as Aleida in all these different roles that you've done in Chemical Hearts, like all of these films with Karen Young, is that the
Kara
actress's name?
Young. Yeah,
Oh my God.
Kara.
I love
Oh, she's
Kara. I love her so
amazing.
much. And I got to
Oh,
see her in her play last year at
Pearly
Manhattan
Vic.
Theater Club.
Oh, sure.
Well, I
Yeah.
haven't seen Pearly Victorious yet, but I saw
Yeah.
Cost of Living, I think it was
Yeah.
called. And the
She's a
two of you,
superstar.
yeah, but also like there you two are on film telling this story that,
Yeah.
you get to be your full self in that way. You've been very, my dog Lola wants to participate. I don't know if you can hear her right now. She's
This is,
very excited that you're here.
she's welcome to join.
Um, you've also been very open about who you are, as a whole person, and who you are interested in romantically, and your private life and public life. You've been very generous with your audiences about, and I think that it really will allow so many young people, we throw around words now like non-binary. I mean, there's all this language around it, but that's very different than someone's lived experience. And hold on one second. I want Lola
No.
to really, in fact, come be with us. Hold on.
Okay, great.
You want to be here? You can be here. Come on the couch. Okay. Anyway, so thank you for being someone who is willing to share so much of yourself, because I think young people do get lost online and on the internet, and there's a lot of hate speech in the world right now.
Sure.
And you being out there are like the most beautiful antidote to all of that. So thank you for your
It's very
honesty and
kind.
your openness and your beautiful performances. Before I let you go, is there a little known fact about Cora Peña that you can share with my listeners? Coral, you have been just the most incredible guest today. I'm so
Oh my
grateful to
goodness.
you.
No, thank you for having me. Thank you. Ah, little known fact about me. Oh man, I don't know. Um, hmm. I really I want to give a good answer.
Take your
Um,
time. There's no ticking clock.
hmm, little known fact. Speaking of Al, it's funny. I just saw Michael Mann talk 2 nights in a row. One after Heat, he screened Heat, and then I saw a double feature of Ferrari and then Ali. And my favorite one of my favorite movies is Thief, which is a Michael Mann movie. But there is a Bruce McGill and Al Pacino have like a monologue in The Insider that my goal of 2024 is to memorize both of them so that I can recite them. It's going to be my new party trick. So that's a little fun fact about me, is that I really love The Insider. Oh, you're muted.
I know, because Lola will not stop being excited. I want to be at that party. And maybe, you did the 24-hour plays. I guess it
Yeah.
was during COVID when they had to be sort of Zoom performances, but maybe, by the way, you were amazing in that. And also, it's probably easier. Thank God they were on Zoom, because those are so scary to actually have to do in front of a live
I
audience.
know,
So
but I did one recently actually, in what, November?
yeah,
No, October, and it's so scary. It was so scary. But there's a sort of everyone is united in the fact that they're sleep deprived, and they're sort of at that point where maybe they're hallucinating what's going on. The audience feels it too, and so there is an electricity there that, even with all the fear, that I'm happy we get to have back.
I'm so proud of you for doing it. But maybe once you learn the monologue for The
Yeah.
Insider, you can put that up on YouTube as well, so all of us
Okay.
can cheer with your success with the thing. Coral, I cannot wait to see all the things coming up for you. Is there an
Oh,
announcement? I'm not caught up on the last season, the latest
that's
season
right.
of season 4 for All Mankind. Is there more, or is that the end of the series as far as you know, or you don't know yet?
We don't know. I mean, the showrunners have a vision for the future. They're proud of the show. I know Apple's proud of the show. So there's no word. Um, so we just have to wait and see.
All right, we'll do the old-fashioned write in letters and keep it going and let them know. I just want you to know how grateful I am for you, your work, your integrity, your beautiful heart, and your artistry. And here's to a really incredible future of us getting to see you do all the things that you want to do. And thank you for being on the podcast today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate this conversation.
All right, until next time, have a great day.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you. It was so nice
Thank
meeting
you.
you.
So nice meeting you. Bye,
Bye.
sweetheart. Bye.
Bye.